Hello.
We're up? Okay.
Yeah, we're over here on this camera. Hi.
Oh, that one?
Yeah. We're in this
Okay.
one. Hi, everyone.
This is a decoy.
It's Val and Roy, and we're back to talk about casting molds, right?
Yep.
So we got these really nice casting molds from Creative Paradise. One's Starfish, and the other is
I will
really
do
lovely.
this
You're
one.
going to do that one? Sweet.
Seahorse.
Seahorse.
They are cute. They're darn cute.
They're, you know,
Yeah, they
I'd say
really
the
are.
detail, I don't know how well that shows up on camera, but maybe we'll get some close-ups, is the detail's incredible, right? I mean, it's unbelievable how much, I was going to say detail again. I said detail 4 times in one sentence.
Yeah.
But
I think you covered that
did I
part.
cover the
Yeah.
detail part?
Yeah.
Good. And
But
so
they are,
we're-
it looks like a real starfish.
Oh
is
man,
what
does
you-
it ever? Yeah, this is one that Daisy made that works here, right? And if you, she got an image offline about like a starfish, and this looks exactly like a starfish that we saw. So pretty cool. We'll talk a little bit about how they're made, obviously, but and these are a couple of the starfish that were done by Creative Paradise. So Stephanie O'Toole and her crew sent these, which was nice. They sent it for us, which was wonderful. They also sent a couple of the seahorses. Getting to see how nice that these kind of turn out. And there's one that we did. Willow, I think, made that one.
Yeah, I know it's going to be
Yeah, it's
hard.
a little dark, but
But it's a real dark blue, green, transparent. It's very pretty. It would backlight very pretty.
yeah, if the light comes through it, you can see it pretty good. But in this room, obviously, it doesn't show up very well. It shows up a little dark, I think. So, yeah. I like
I love seahorses.
animated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, seahorses.
They're nice, and the starfish are nice. And so we're going to talk about, and what was used for these was frit, right?
Yeah, these are just,
Yeah.
specifically we use frit for these.
So often, we've done another one on casting molds. So if you want to check that out at our YouTube channel or something, that's where they all, I've been told that's where they're the easiest to find, right? Okay, they're all there on our YouTube channel. And we were pretty inclusive, I think, about all of it. But I think what this one, we were using frit, and one of the reasons why you would use frit and not just chunk up glass, because that's the way I do a lot of them, because it's a great way to use scrap glass, right? But you do want to use some frit for the very bottom, because they're like an upside down cake. It's like what you put down in is going to then be flipped over and be the surface. So so you want to, with all this little detail, I don't know how well you can see it, Noah, but so like Daisy did the color, so the first layer is going to be frit with, you putting it in specific areas to really get the top look that you want. And then I think at least what I do is then once I get that layered in there and the color designated where I need it, then I'll backfill with some scrap again or something like that. But when you have a mold that has this kind of texture in the bottom, a casting mold, then you automatically know it's going to be a reverse situation. It's going to be an upside down situation. Because I know in a couple of the classes I teach, I know it can get kind of confusing because some of them aren't. Some of the pendants and things of the casting molds are not that upside down. You build it, and then what you see on the top is what you're going to get.
Oh yeah,
so there is
difference.
Either or. So anyway.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, I guess we should talk about a little bit is that again, I'm sure it seems obvious, right, that these are casting molds. So unlike slumping molds, I mean the material is pretty much the same, right? Whatever the clay body is, but these are intended to be used with fusing temperatures, so hotter temperatures, right? So I know you have a pretty good
Not slumping. These are not
slumping
slumping
temperatures,
molds.
right?
These
They're
are going to be
definitely
full fused.
casting. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're melting the glass, and again, we find sometimes, especially I know you're talking about all the detail that's in there. The finer frit or smaller frit seems to kind of make that a little bit better. I know Daisy had used a variety of frits in this one. Powders, fine, medium. I think she used pretty much like all of them. I don't think she used any coarse from looking at the back of it, but you could have used coarse. And then for our project, this one and this other seahorse, we use Yakagini frit, which is for us is something that's pretty new, right? We haven't had it that long. So if you're not familiar, the nice folks at Yakagini that make sheet glass, right? They also started making frit, and it's a 96, compatible with all the other 96 products that are out there. You can see some of the jars on the top. Again, if you're familiar with their sheet line, they don't have colors, fit in all of it quite yet, but they do a large proportion of those. And again, a variety of sizes, right? From anywhere from powder to fine, medium, and coarse. This is how we're selling it in these. I was
going to say, how much is in there?
8-ounce containers.
Is it 8 ounces?
I don't know if it's 8 ounces, actually. It doesn't say on the thing, does it? I don't think it's 8. 6 maybe. What's nice is about, I think anyways, on these containers here is it's a great way of trying out a bunch of colors, right? So you don't have to buy like a big pound of every color just to see what's going on, and maybe you don't need a pound of one of the colors. They do sell the clear in particular, like in these larger containers, and sorry, I don't know what size that is either, but 3 pounds it says right on the top. I read.
Awesome.
So 3-pound container, right? So if you do need it more in a bulk kind of packaging, they have the clear in that size. And it's also, again, powder, fine, medium, coarse, whatever you need.
Cool. Opaque, transparent. Did you already
opaque
say that?
Nope, I didn't say that. Yeah, you're right. Good though. So
Thanks.
Opaque and transparent. If you're not familiar with Yakagini 96 glass, some of the warm colors are strikers. So the, for example, I have this one here. It's going to strike a little darker than that, right? This orange opal, it's going to be orange, kind of orange like a pumpkin orange. So, like a Halloween kind of stylized pumpkin, but.
Yeah, it's like anything. You have to, like you said, the little jars are a nice way to sort of get the hang of what it actually fuses to in terms of color, and and whether you like that color or try another color. But they're all, I think, really pretty colors.
Yeah, this one that Daisy made, there's white on these little tips, but she used a transparent red. There's an opaque red in here. She used orange. There's like a marigold. Wide variety of colors. She was trying to really get that kind of layered look, so it wasn't just one solid red or something, right? And then, as Val pointed out, she used clear in the back. So, there is a. What's nice is that the the CPI, the Creative Paradise people, gave us a weight, for like what we should use for these particular ones. And I know that just for whatever reason, I remember the Seahorse was like 260 grams. And so it makes it real easy when you're trying to just figure out like how much do you have to fill it for, right? Don't we get that question asked like all the time?
Yes, we do.
Like,
we get that question.
Like how much glass goes in there? If you're not sure, it's a matter of opinion, right? I think you and I both agree that maybe we might have used a hair more frit. Am I speaking for you or no on this?
I didn't actually see it before.
Oh, you didn't see it beforehand?
No, so I can't really
I can tell you if you're not sure, right, about how much to add and you don't have a scale, which I can show you that, surprisingly, Delphi sells a little scale.
Isn't that cute?
Isn't that so nice? Really kind of a nice unit. It's super easy, right? So you can just, turn it on, set the mold on there.
Zero it out.
You can zero out the weight, right? And then then you can just start adding the glass until it gets to whatever desired amount, right? 260 grams is what they said. But if you don't have a scale, what Val and I do a lot of times, I think, with these kind of molds is we fill it till it fills the whole till it's even with the top of the mold, and then we add a little extra like in the middle. So for this one, maybe down in here, you would add, kind of pile it up so it's just a little higher than the mold, with the Starfish right in the center. That way, when because with frit, there's airspace between each piece of frit, so when it melts, it's going to settle down. And if you have that little extra in the middle, as it settles down, it'll kind of settle down to the edge, and it minimizes the risk of maybe getting little spikes along the end, as the glass settles down.
Yeah, so it's like a secondary, if you have a little pile, it's like a secondary melt that comes down and then will flow over any of those little grab-ons that can happen.
Yeah, which is nice.
Will they fit in here?
They might.
Turn it upside down. Can show how. People are always just amazed at how low they get. So
this is a good one.
You can see that when it was filled, it was up to the line, right?
It's close.
Okay, but it is now.
It's below, yeah. You can see how it's
lower.
Much lower than what the mold is, right?
So that's just telling you the glass has moved down, and that's when they can, get those little needles if the glass sort of grabs on as that level sinks,
Yep, and you can see maybe all the white that's,
we always have
that's
white
on our
on this.
hands, right? So that's from the spray that's on here, which we'll talk about, I think, in a moment. I don't know if I want to talk about it in a second.
All right, do you want to talk about the wire?
Yeah, let's talk about some wire. Yeah, so the Creative Paradise people, these are some samples they sent us, which like I said, was super nice of them. And they put wire in a lot of them to hang them, right? Because people often ask, well, what do you do with these, right? I mean, after you make them. But so they put some wire so you can hang them up, on a wall or in a window, depending on what you're doing. They did a couple of different types of hangers, which I thought was kind of interesting. Different ways. So you can see these kind of come off the glass, right? And then, so you just, when that one was in the mold, you could see where the wire was kind of bent up so you could get it in there. So you do just stick the wire in while you have all your
sort of
frit.
try to embed it into the frit.
The Starfish, though, this one I thought was kind of interesting, was one that they had done in the back. So again, this one sits in the mold. I probably don't have it in the right direction. Nope. But you get the idea. Doesn't matter.
No.
And then you can just put the wire in the back, right, as it's fusing. But
in the frit, you're not.
Yeah, right in the frit.
You're not doing it when it's hot.
Oh yeah, not while it's fusing, but.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes.
Well, you could if you. If you're
yeah.
adventurous, but.
And this copper wire?
Yeah, what I'm noticing is what they used was a couple of different wires, right? So copper is always a good one. It's really friendly in the glass, right? You don't run into too many issues. So this is something that, again, something Delphi sells. A 16 gauge. I would definitely at least recommend a 16 gauge. Nothing. If you're not familiar with gauges, the higher the number, the thinner the wire, right? So.
You wouldn't recommend a thinner.
I wouldn't recommend thinner. So no. 18 or 20 gauge, I wouldn't recommend.
This one is.
Except this is what, right?
Coiled.
I don't know if you can see this one,
the right word? Twisted.
They twisted a wire here. So this wire,
I think it makes
it's a little thinner wire, right? Looks to me more like an 18 or a 20 gauge, but they twisted it, so that makes it stronger, right?
Right.
So,
that's what I was going to say. I think that makes it stronger, and it makes it a little more decorative too.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. Yes.
I like it.
And then, but another type of wire you can use, which is sometimes it really just goes by the term high temperature wire. It's a nickel chromium wire, which sometimes people call it nichrome. I hear people call it nichrome a lot of times. So nickel chromium wire. So high temperature, the advantage to it doesn't lose its shape at all when it gets hotter. More of a silvery color, if that makes any difference. Again, that's what's in the back of this one, if you can see the back.
And it stays pretty much this color. The copper can sort of get the black and darken.
Yeah, sometimes it can get real dark, right? So these aren't too bad. You can see the slight discoloration of this one, right?
It's definitely not copper.
It's no longer copper color, right? It oxidizes because of the heat and changes color. But I don't know if that's that big of a deal, right? Is it?
No, but I just thought we should mention it because then I'm afraid people will do it and then it's not copper anymore and then they're going to be disappointed. Yeah,
the one thing about the copper too is it's not as strong as the nichrome, like I said, but it works, especially for these. These pieces aren't that huge; they're not that heavy, so shouldn't have any problems, hanging them with those. So, what else? We talked about all that.
The sprays.
I guess might as well talk about sprays, right? So, yeah, So if you're not familiar, it was one reason why early on I was trying to mention that that these are casting molds and not slumping molds, because you treat them differently when it comes to putting on some kind of separator, right? We always need something on the surface so the glass will come off easily, whether it's a slumping mold or a casting mold. The issue with casting molds is since we're going hotter, we often don't use kiln wash. In fact, we don't recommend using kiln wash at all for these in particular.
Just for these. We do for slumping molds.
Yeah, for slumping molds, but not for casting molds. And so what we recommend is a product called Boron Nitride. We sell here at Delphi 3 different brands, and so we thought it was a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about the different brands. I do know that Creative Paradise recommends the Zip. They've had the best luck with that. So I mean,
and a lot of people,
right? It's a great standard. Right?
A high percentage of our customers prefer this one.
Prefer the Zip, yeah. So the advantage to the Zip is, so if you have a brand new mold, the normal recommendation would be 2 light coats is what's the recommendation, right? And usually they mean light. I can tell you though, on these particular molds from Creative Paradise, since they're so textured, I know I've said textured like 5,000 times today, haven't I? Right? I know. Sorry.
No,
Can I think of another word? So. I need a synonym.
Thesaurus.
Thank you. Quickly. So, but since they're so textured, that the recommendation is maybe more than the 2 thin coats, right? I did this one, and I can tell you I went a little overboard. So one of the things is, what's tricky is, so if you're spraying this, let's say you're just holding it like this in your hand and spraying it, you're only getting one angle. So it's really important to turn it around. So especially these that have all these like hills and valleys, you got to make sure you're catching the different angles. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So that's when people say, so they recommend 2 coats when the mold is brand new.
Yep.
And then every time you use it after that, you spray it 1 coat.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. One light coat.
But you tell people that's deceiving, because you're not going to just go shh. You have to kind of rotate it and go. So I do blasts. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, that's how I do it too.
Little blasts all the way
yep.
around, and then So it's not quite like just one spray, but they really equate it into being just 1 coat.
Yeah, 1 coat. Yeah, what you're looking for is you don't want a buildup of the boron, right? So I mean, this isn't one of those things that more is not always necessarily better, right? So some people go, oh, 2 coats, I'm going to put on 10 coats, right, and not worry about it. What you're going to get is a buildup of the boron, which is really just a powder, especially into all of these little valleys, all the little nooks and crannies, and then that can stick to the glass sometimes. Especially, so usually I think we both do this, don't we? Every few firings we'll brush it out, we just use a paintbrush, like what you'd use
Real
for like a soft
so you don't
paintbrush,
scratch the mold.
and then just kind of knock out the loose stuff and then spray again, right?
Yeah, I basically do it almost every time.
Do you every time? Yeah, I do it. If I like I said, for me it's more of a visual thing. I look at it and go, oh yeah, there's some stuff kind of hiding, in the corners.
This one's bad.
And then I go ahead and knock it out. So like I said, this one I did, so I can definitely tell you guys I sprayed too much on it. I can see it. Woo.
Yeah,
Can you see it? Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can see it. Well, we wanted to
there
get
you
that.
go.
We wanted to get that little seahorse out of there.
Yeah,
so.
it's tricky about the seahorse is, again, lots of detail. This thin tail kind of curls around. It has this nice little ridge in here that goes around and spirals down in there. And, the glass could get caught up on that. We've seen that before in other situations. But we do sell other brands of Zip, of the Boron. And so quickly, I just want to tell you the difference between them is the percentage or concentration of boron in the can. That's the difference. So the Zip, which is more expensive, has more boron in it. That's why you can get away with doing fewer coats. These other brands don't contain as much boron, so you have to apply more coats. This high temp 1800 slide, I think it's almost, I would say 3 times. Is that what, so if you're doing 2 coats on a brand new mold with the Zip, you're doing like 6 easily with this one, right? That's the difference.
Yeah.
The more is the same way. It's not as bad, but it's probably like, instead of doing 3 times more, it's easily 2 times more than what the Zip would be.
So it goes like this, less coats.
Yep. That's how I would do it.
And then this is the
And
most.
then this one. Yeah. And that goes for number of coats. And so that's why if you're looking at these up online, you'll see a difference in price. And the price, again, if you think of it as just you're paying for the boron, right? The more expensive one just has more boron in the can, a higher percentage compared to propellant, right?
And you use
less. So that's why you would use less. And so we use it a lot of times, the Zip, just because it's just easier. I mean, for us to remember, 2 coats than it is to remember 6 coats, right? I mean, did I put 6 coats on or not? But anyways, they all do the job.
Yeah.
But just if you apply them correctly.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
just,
kind of the main
I
thing.
just keep want to reiterate, we only use it on our casting molds.
Yes. Oh, good point.
Because
only on casting molds.
It's expensive, and so if you start spraying all your slumping molds with it, it will work.
Yeah.
But you've got to do it every time then, and then it's just going to get
Waste of
so
money,
expensive.
yeah.
Whereas if you
yeah.
just kiln wash your slumping molds, you got months upon months.
Yeah,
right?
it's actually one of my pet peeves here because sometimes in our
I don't know what he's going to
classrooms-
say.
Oh, she doesn't know.
I might get irritated.
And it has nothing to do with Val, I'm pretty sure. But I'm pretty sure there was maybe 1 or 2 people that work here that don't know the difference between, and they spray our slumping molds with the boron, and as we mentioned before, it's a waste of your money, right? I mean, if you kiln wash a slumping mold, it should last 30, 40 firings without any problem, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to apply it every single time like this. You brought some other stuff though you wanted to show, right? Did you? Oh, I have something I was going to show too. That frit vac.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe you should lay a little frit in. And
we were doing. I know when Daisy was doing her particular one, and she was trying to get really kind of detailed in what she was doing, and she was not doing what I'm doing, which is just spraying it in. I mean, just putting it in. She was being a little more careful, a little more delicate, using a spoon. She used tweezers. She used one of those little sifters, which I forgot to bring. We sell these little sifters on. We talked about just recently, right, in a Facebook Live. So you can look that one up. But But sometimes, when you're just sprinkling in frit, it gets in the wrong spot, right? It goes somewhere you don't want it to.
Or we put some up here.
Oh, yeah, or this is even a great idea.
This is where,
this is a good point,
because
yeah.
if you get it up on the side of the mold, what a lot of people will do, they'll use a nice little soft brush, and then they'll start brushing it back into, well, you're brushing the boron in there. So you don't want to do that.
Yeah, don't brush it back in.
No, so this little tool right here.
This is called a frit vac, right? And so you just turn it on, you hear that little, and you can just come in and pick up, anything that's spilled.
Do it from here and go that way.
Right, so you can see how this, or down in your mold. So if you got like that green somewhere you didn't want it, this just picks it up. What's nice too is that it's saved right here, so it's just inside that little container. You can just open it up and there's your frit, right? So you can reuse it. So it's not really wasting a lot of frit.
No, it's a neat
kind of
little
nice.
thing.
It doesn't work for all sizes of frit. It does work for powders and fine in some mediums, but the opening's too small for. Coarse. You're not gonna pick up
I got
coarse,
to tell you, I've used it on the coarse, and not that I'm sucking it up, but the vacuum holds
one piece
to get it out of the way.
If you got one piece out of the way. Well, I guess it works for multiple. Maybe you should have talked to the marketing people.
I should have talked to the person who's selling these things, who he knows what the heck he's doing.
Yeah, that guy that's selling them out of the
out
of the trunk of his car somewhere at a local farmer's market. You might see him. But anyways, that's a nice little tool, not overly expensive, I don't think.
Yeah.
Right? Great way of just cleaning up
and
stuff.
I don't know. This is, like I said, this was probably, we covered this on the other casting one we did, and but we were looking at these, and they're, like some of them are rather heavy, and then this one that Willow just did is not quite as thick and heavy. So there is some variation.
Yeah, there
just
is
because
variation.
they recommend, a certain amount of frit doesn't necessarily you always have to do it.
No.
The thing you want to be careful of, though, is if you just want to do a real thin one, like really thin, fill the whole bottom of the mold and have it come up a little bit. But if that's how thin you want it, you cannot go to a full fuse, because if you go to a full fuse, that glass is going to want to, when it's molten, is going to want to be 1/4 of an inch. And so it's going to suck in and ball up everywhere, and you're going to have big voids in your cute little seahorse.
Yeah.
So we did this, like I said before, because sometimes we kind of like the thinner look. So it's not that you can't make it thinner. If you make it thinner, though, you cannot go that hot.
Yep.
You just have to, and that ultimately, this is a leaf we did before. And the only thing, you can see that it's pretty thin, and it's also kind of sparkly textured because it didn't melt all the way. But because it did not go to that molten state, it didn't start sucking up, and it stayed nice and level in the mold, and we got a nice little thinner thing. So just a FYI in case, because I think these are so cute, but sometimes if you want to hang it on the wall or maybe in a window, or they're kind of heavy, so you could maybe back off a little.
I think that's a great idea. I know we haven't here, didn't have an opportunity to play around with trying to do some. We literally just got these molds in the end of last week, I think, wasn't it? It was not that long ago, and haven't had an opportunity to play around with them a little bit more and try to do some slightly thinner castings just for the fun of it. But you're right. I mean, there's a recommended weight of frit to put in there, but you can do what you want, right, and have fun with that and try it out.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well.
Wow, I think we
questions,
we covered
Noah?
everything. Do we get any questions? We must have.
Do you have any questions, Noah? Do you need any questions answered?
Clarifying, so once you use zip spray, you can't then use kiln wash.
Oh, good question.
Oh, good question. Yeah, we get that question a lot of times. I mean, that's not technically not true, but I mean, you just have to remove what was on there before, right? So, like if you kiln wash this mold, now you're like, oh, I want a boron. I want to use a boron spray on it. You just have to clean the kiln wash out, right? Get it wet.
Which is another thing people think you should never do, but you can.
Oh, yeah.
You almost have to. If you try to kiln wash over the boron, it just repels.
Yeah, it beads off.
Yeah,
or
it
vice
just beads
versa.
off.
When you're trying to put the boron you can spray it on the kiln wash, but it's really kind of blotchy. But just take off whatever you had on beforehand, whether it's the boron or the kiln wash, and then just recoat it with whatever.
Tell us how to take it off, though. Do you put it underwater?
Yeah, so I'm glad.
Because a lot
good
of
question,
people,
Noah, because
it is, because a lot of people, have heard, oh, no, I can't get my mold wet.
Yeah, you hear this all the time.
You
People,
can't get
you
your
can't get
molds
your molds
wet.
wet. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
no.
ideal, but you can do
Real quick, though, about safety, something we didn't mention earlier, and we should have. So
Yes.
the recommendation when you're spraying any of the boron ones is you should wear a mask, right? You should, we often do it outside if you can do it outside.
Just make sure that you know where the wind.
Yeah, where the wind's blowing, just watch that. But you really should wear something because that stuff does go like all over the place. If you're in a studio where you have a concrete floor, that stuff gets on the floor. It's like an ice skating rink at that point.
So
it is
slick.
super slippery. So again, just be careful about that.
Yeah,
So
good
So then
point.
let's get back to now cleaning these, right? So let's say I kiln wash this and I want to now, because that's wrong, so I need to use the boron. I do it underwater, and one reason why I do it underwater is because, or running water, is because you're going to be scraping off kiln wash and creating a dust, and you don't want to breathe that in. So if it's wet, right, the water washes that away, and you don't have to worry about breathing it in. I use just like those green scrubby pads, I don't know what they call them, Scotch Brite pads
I don't know,
or
but
something.
I think everybody knows green.
Yeah,
scrunchie.
you know what I mean by that, right? So, and then sometimes a stiff brush. So if you might have to go in with something a little bit stiffer, a little short bristly brush for like scrubbing vegetables or something, right?
Okay.
Something
Not a
along that
wire
line.
brush,
Not a wire
anything
brush.
that
No, you don't want to do
aggressive.
anything to the ceramic, nothing that aggressive. But you'll be surprised. And what I found really interesting is that even if you do the same thing with the boron, right? You get it wet, do them wet, and then you don't have to breathe any of that powder that you're creating in the air. You'll see it because the ceramic color is different than, especially the wet ceramic color is definitely different than kiln wash surface or the boron, and you'll see the difference between them, and you'll know which areas you still have to get to and what ones you don't. Rinse it out, then make sure it's dry before you use it. And it literally can just, if you let it sit around, it'll dry out in a short time. If you're impatient, you can stick it in the kiln and heat it up to dry it out. I've actually set it on top of a kiln that I had running, and then that dries it out. So there's several ways of doing it, but definitely dry the mold out before you use it.
Yeah, good question.
Wow, good question. No, that was a good one. But if you guys have questions later on, right? So if you're not watching us live, if you're watching us
Nobody
on
does.
later, nobody does, right? You 6 people watching us, thank you. I'm just kidding. We appreciate all of you guys watching us. But if you're watching this later, you can always, send us a message on Instagram, or you can email us on, at Facebook at delphiglass.com. And we'll answer them, right? We like answering them.
Noah will.
Or Noah will, or he'll track us down. But if you have ideas also for other, content, other things you'd like to see us talk about, or demonstrations, or whether it's product or technique. Stained glass, mosaics, fusing, you name it. Flame working. Val and I can do it. We can, right? We can do anything, right?
We could.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're done. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We just got those in stock, so if you want to.
Oh man, yeah, these are in stock, and this is the typical. They're going fast, so you better buy them. But I just looked at them before we came in, and there are only a couple. It is true. There's only a couple, I think, of each one of these left. So, but we'll restock. We restock all the time, and Creative Paradise does a great job of getting these molds to us. So I thank them for helping us out with this and showing us samples. And we will be back in some other day, probably a few weeks, right? We don't know.
Couple weeks? I don't know. Yeah.
I think we skipped for 4th of July, right?
Oh,
so,
right. Okay. So,
but anyways,
but we will return.
we shall return. So thanks.
Thanks,
for joining.
guys.